What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the TenSevenMMA MMA Show, and it is Friday, right before another major UFC event. I'm just going to mute you, Justin, because there's a little bit of background noise. We are on the precipice of a really, really great Abu Dhabi card, which, to be honest, I don't even know if that many people are fully aware of how incredible this card is. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to be centered around this incredible UFC event that goes on tomorrow. We got Tony Ferguson coming back. We got a lot of people. But before we get started with everything, this is not one of the listed items that we said we were going to talk about, but I got a little surprise. So I made a video, I think I released it yesterday, and it was an apology to Belal Muhammad. So me and Justin have, both had some things that we said about Belal, not like really super that big of a deal, just in the sense that maybe he didn't come across as that interesting in some of his interviews. I know Justin isn't like the biggest fan of his fight style. I don't think that many people are either, because it does lend to a lot of decisions. But I've really been rethinking Belal Muhammad, especially because what he said he was going to do, he did in that fight. And I've been trying to go back. I went back on the video. I kind of made an apology video because there were some number of items that I said were a little bit cringy in his fight lead up, and as to why maybe people don't like him. But the things that I thought were cringy, or the things that I pointed out that I said were cringy, I said they were cringy because I thought they were ludicrous, but they ended up, some of them being true, and he did prove us right. So what I wanted to show you, Justin, first, and we'll get your reaction, is there's another YouTuber named MMA Joey, who he's a huge Belal fan, and he's one of the people that has kind of turned me around in terms of my thoughts on Belal. So let me just start with this very quickly. I'm going to share a little bit of this video, and then Justin, I want to get your thoughts, because yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely changing my mind about Belal. Belal's getting a lot of praise by a lot of fighters, including Michael Bisping, who's a British fighter, who's a buddy of Leon Edwards, giving him a lot of praise. So I think it's very interesting. So let's check it out.
That was some of the best promotion I've seen. So shout out to the UFC for that. But I'm just showing here that Belal is promotable. And Belal, people act like Belal is so cringy and his trash talk so horrible, or the things that he says is so horrible. If you actually listen to him talk, I think Belal is being vastly overhated for no reason. But let's continue listening.
So when I sit there and I stress out about it, it's like, it's just a fight. It's 25 minutes. But I'm still going to go see my family after this. I'm still going to go eat what I want to eat after this. They're starving over there. They're dying over there. So for me, if I give them some sort of attention, if I give them a smile on their face for getting this win, if I can make them not think about what hell they're going through in those 25 minutes, and it's 10 minutes, then I did something right. I did my job. If I get somebody to, bring more attention to them, want to learn more about what's happening over there.
So there you go. I mean, if that's not promotable, if that's not admirable, to just try to be there and be an inspiration to people where he's from, I don't know what is. And people act like this is a unlikable guy. I mean, what's unlikable about that? Now, the next part is a little bit of actual trash talk from Belal, just a little bit. And he talks about dwelling on the fight with Leon Edwards. And then he also kind of promotes himself a little bit. Look what I did to Leon. Colby couldn't do that. Usman couldn't do that. And the reason I'm highlighting this is because people act like Belal stating facts is like horrible trash talk. People act like Belal being confident in himself coming into the fight and saying, look, I'm going to bully Leon. They act like, oh, Belal's so cringe. I just don't get the hate, man.
And I'll tell you why I did hate on it originally, because I was one of these people, and I felt like it was cringy because I thought it was ludicrous, and I thought what he was saying was just nonsensical, and he was trying to promote the fight, but doing so without being genuine and without being authentic. Turns out I was wrong, so I just wanted to point that out. I mean, I was definitely in that boat, but anyways, we're going to just continue a little bit more, and then Justin, I'm going to turn over to you because I want to hear your thoughts.
And I don't get the hate. I think this is perfect.
We had 3 years to sit there, and I had to sit there and dwell on that thing, that last fight of everybody saying, oh, he would have beat him. He would have won the last other rounds. He would have did this. He would have did that. We didn't even get started that fight. This fight, we got started. This is what we did. We just dominated the champion. We made it look easy. And we did it better than Kobe did, better than Usman did. And, they're national champ wrestlers. They're this, and this.
So there you go. He said, look, what I did to Leon, I fought him better than Colby Covington did. I fought him better than Kamaru Usman did. And people act like this is horrible trash talk, or yeah, Belal's so cringy. I think this is perfect trash talk. Perfect. He's not trying to be somebody that he's not, and he's stating nothing but facts. So very, very promotable. Now, the next clip.
Okay, so we're gonna stop it there, and I do want to give a shout out once again to MMA Joey for covering this stuff, and actually, because he's mentioned too, he's not doing it for views. He says his videos on Bilal actually don't do very well, but he's doing it because he feels that it's important to give him his due credit, which I think is totally fair. Justin, I'm gonna unmute you, and yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts. Like, yeah, tell me what you think of all that.
I mean, it's. I don't like Bilal because I think he's a bad person. I just don't. Again, he's cringy on the mic. I mean, you can't pull two things he said. It was like a 20-second clip of saying, "Oh, I want to help kids back home." That's great, man. So does every other fighter. So do I. Like when I come back to my hometown, I'm from Podunk, Richmond, Michigan. Like, yeah, I want the kids to look up to me as inspiration. You look at Brandon Moreno, in the slums of Mexico, going down there. And I mean, that's what fighters do, man. Most of us aren't in this for the money. So MMA Joe's like, oh, how could you not like this guy? And it's just like, well, I mean, he's just like every other fighter, and he's trying to do the same thing every other fighter is trying to do. So it's not like this is, oh my gosh, like this is this is fucking every guy. Wherever you come from,
Right.
whether you come from a blue collar background like I do, whether you come from, like when I was in India, man, those were real slums, man. And just like Bilal's, I'm sure where his family's from. But with that being said, I'm pretty sure he was born in California. And I think I might be mistaken on that, but I was pretty sure he was born in California. And dude, I think that's great. Be an inspiration. Yeah, if he can help people and help kids, and dude, I think that's fantastic. But it's almost rinse and reuse. You know what I mean? It's like all us fighters are, and it's genuine. I know he's genuine. Of course he's genuine, but that should just be basic. It doesn't, I mean, that's just everyone's doing that, man. Like, and then to go on is like, oh, it's trash talk again. That's one sentence. All right, well, let's pull up like MMA Joey. It's kind of weird. Like, usually he has pretty good stuff. Like, I'm not saying I disagree with him, but like to pull out a 10-second clip of him saying that he wants to inspire kids and help kids, that's great. So does every other fighter where they're from. The U.S. is giving them the stage to do that on, so, thank God for America per se. And then you go to, him going, oh, well, I out wrestled him. Okay, yeah, he is pointing out facts, but that's not the trash talk that people are saying is cringy. Nobody says that's not cringy. He did. I did this, what they couldn't do. That's not cringy. That's fact. Calling Leon scared when he's in the elevator. I mean, bro, come on, man. We're all fighters. Like nobody's scared of or like we all have a kind of almost a mental illness. And that's why we're fighters, because we're not afraid. You know what I mean? Wherever I go, I'm only, 180 pounds. I don't care if there's a guy that's 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I'm not going to be afraid of him. Leon Edwards is not afraid of Bilal. So when fighters are like, oh, he's scared of me. It's like, that's stupid. We wouldn't be in this profession if we were afraid. So when he talks about, oh, I don't understand why this is cringy, that's not cringy. It's just like me saying that I wrestled in college and I did okay. It's like, it's just a fact. It's not a big deal. I mean, I mean, it's again, it doesn't change my perspective on him. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less. He's a UFC champion. He's Muslim. He has a very strong religious background. Like, I respect it. I respect everybody and their beliefs. But again, I don't think that 10-second clip of him saying that he's doing this separates him for anybody else. I think he's a great fighter. I think he whooped Leon's ass. It doesn't mean I have to like him. And when I say I don't like him, it doesn't mean I hate him. Like, fuck, I hope he dies. No, I mean, it's like pro wrestling. Like, I'm a Stone Cold Steve Austin fan. That doesn't mean I like Triple H. I don't like Triple H. It's just, I don't know. Does that make sense?
That's totally fair. And I think that's right. And I forgot about that elevator incident. That was one thing that I didn't kind of reel back in terms of when I was basically making my apology video, because you're right. That was a little cringy and that was a little silly. But I do think that he has elite MMA Joey has helped to change my mind about Bilal, which is dope. Because like at the end of the day, I think it's fun to root for every fighter in your own way. Maybe root for some more than others, just like you mentioned, right? Sure. But now at least to see some of the good and the positivity in Bilal, and also I can fully admit part of the track, like the elevator incident thing was really silly, but some of the other things where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna walk through him, it's gonna be easy, all the stuff, and then he kind of did. I mean, he walked through him. He was dominant. He was just shooting for those takedowns so effectively, mixing up the striking. It was incredible. So anyways, I just wanted to show that to you. And I do think it's dope to have somebody out there, because like even now that he's won, I mean, you do have fighters giving him his props, but even people are still kind of clowning him. They're like, well, I guess we have Bilal as a champ, so the welterweight division's boring now, or stuff like that, kind of clowning him that way. That I do see a lot of YouTubers doing that. So it's cool to see MMA Joey get his back and be such a big supporter. So anyways, just wanted to start the show there. Now let's move on to this crazy Abu Dhabi card. And at the end of our topic list, I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the description, we will be talking about some things that happened in the news regarding Conor McGregor. Again, not really fight related, but I do think it leads back to what's going to happen to him at the end of the year if he does get this fight made with Michael Chandler in December 14th, I believe is the date that's being potentially discussed. But anyways, let's start off with the main event in this UFC Abu Dhabi card. I think it's a fight night. We've got Cory Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov, who is obviously related to Khabib and who trains with Khabib and Islam. So, Justin, as we start with this fight, I mean, Cory Sandhagen is incredible on the feet. That would be an amazing matchup with him versus Sean O'Malley if that ever does happen. Incredible kickboxing match. Not too shabby on the ground. What are your first thoughts on this matchup?
I mean, breaking down Sandhagen, he's 3-2 in his last 5. He's on a 3-fight win streak right now. What separates Sandhagen from Nurmagomedov is the level of fighter he's fought. Sandhagen has fought some of the best fighters in the world. I feel Nurmagomedov is a little bit behind on his competition. Now, we switched the reins over to him, 17-0 on a 17-fight win streak. That's fucking incredible. He has incredible wrestling. He has incredible pace. He has incredible power. This is a big step up for him to go and fight Cory Sandhagen. And I do think he's going to be able to pull this off with pressure, wrestling, and grappling.
Wow. So do you think in general, the matchup favors Umar?
Yeah, I do. Again, that like Sandhagen is a great striker, and I'm sure he's a good wrestler too and a good grappler as well. But when you bring these Russians over with this undefeated, attitude, and they're undefeated through wrestling and grappling, that high pace, he can shut down a lot of offense from someone like Cory Sandhagen. Now if he stands at range and tries to strike with him, I mean, there's a good chance he could get knocked out, but I just don't see that happening. I see him throwing a lot of feints. I see him throwing a lot of jabs and kind of feinting in a lot. To find his range, to see what Cory's reaction and or his defenses are going to be. And he's going to put him up the cage, take him down, and finish this fight.
And by the way, just to mention, Justin did say the 3-2, and he's on a 3-fight win streak. Just to let you guys know, those 2 fights, I don't know if you remember, but the 2 fights that he lost were against, 2 former champs, right? He lost to Petr Yan, and that was a decision. And then he lost to TJ Dillashaw in a split decision. That fight was extremely, extremely close. And TJ Dillashaw, I think, won by the skin of his teeth. I think he also severely injured TJ Dillashaw's knee in the first round. That's my recollection anyways. But just so you can see, Cory Sandhagen's on a pretty amazing tear. We do want to see, or I'd love to see Cory Sandhagen one day as the bantamweight champ. But if this matchup does indeed favor Umar Nurmagomedov, it looks like that's gonna be a tricky thing. Who knows if we'll ever see him in that top spot. But anyways, this is an incredible fight. Once again, huge fight, huge fight card. If you put this at the top of the bill, one of the Nurmagomedovs coming in and seeing what they can do in a brand new division, in the bantamweight division. So very exciting. All right, moving on to topic number 2, Shara Bullet. One of my new favorite up-and-comers in the UFC. Striking is absolutely out of control. For those of you guys who are unfamiliar with Shara Bullet, he is a Dagestani fighter, but not your traditional style for that region. He's actually a kickboxer that doesn't have great, it's all right grappling, but he's not known for his grappling, but his striking and kickboxing is out of control. And he the guy who's fighting, I'm not familiar with him, but I've been listening to a lot of people talk about it this week. They're saying it's a major step up in competition. Hold on, Justin. Let me pull up the name real quick and see if you recognize him. I
already looked it up. I don't recognize him. And I think they're just feeding him, looking for another highlight. I think they really want to build this kid. I think the UFC really wants to build this guy. He hasn't fought any notable fighters yet, and I know it's he can't come to the U.S., so they're finding guys that they can bring in for him. But he's highlighting everyone, and I think it's great. And they're going to get the popularity behind him. He has an interesting take. He's different. He's blind in one eye. We're gonna, it's gonna give people another reason for people to root for this guy. He calls himself a pirate or something like that. Like, I think that's gangster. I think it's cool. He's exciting to watch. I think the UFC sees value in this, so they're gonna give him a couple more no names guys that like last guy fought. I don't know who it was. This guy he's fighting. There's a lot of hype behind this guy, and again, the UFC is doing the right thing. They're building these guys. He's a young guy. He's very explosive. He's fast. And again, having one eye, doing something at the highest level with a disability, people love getting behind it and they love seeing success. So I do think the UFC is favoring this guy, and he's going to win by a highlight reel knockout once again.
And I mean, how incredible is it? You could kind of imagine somebody with one eye being amazing at grappling, right? Because maybe a lot of that is more sensory from touch and feel and pressure and things like that. But to have one eye and to have that striking acumen is pretty insane. Now, I do know that you can adjust to having one eye. So a lot of people think, all right, you only have one eye. I know this because of just personal situation, like people I know that do deal with this. So but they think that, all right, you don't have depth perception, so you can't play sports, you can't be athletic. That's actually not true. Your body can adapt and your brain can almost like rewire to have that same depth perception with one eye. And then what people often do, if they're acclimated to that condition, they turn their head more to make up for the lack of peripheral vision, right? You're missing your peripheral vision out of this side. So you just get accustomed to turning your head more. So Shara Bullet is proof positive that you can just be just as a highly functioning athlete as possible, or maybe he's just that amazing of a specimen.
Not to interrupt you, but I want to give you a big shout out. Roman Isbell, my coach, he's fighting tonight. He is blind in one eye. He is 100% blind in one eye. He is fighting in the U.S. He hasn't fought in about 8 years. He decided he couldn't fight because of the ophthalmological exam. And I know I'm probably pronouncing that word wrong.
No, that's right.
But because he can only see out of one eye. So if something happened that he found a commission that would let him pass an eye test, and he fights tonight. And I believe it is in Utah. So Salt Lake City's fighting for a promotion that I fought for. So big shout out to blind fighter, my coach, Roman Isbell, tonight.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, so we've got this coming up. By the way, I did pull up his name is Michael. I'm not pronouncing this right, probably, but Oleksiejczuk, I believe is the pronunciation. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. I mean, I think it makes sense what Justin's saying is that they're kind of feeding him somebody that may be more likely to lose than not. His last 2 losses were to Michel Pereira and Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland, he just lost to him actually on June 1st. So that's a 2-month turnaround. What do you think about that? Like, how much? Geez, you have a look, dude. He lost by armbar. Granted, it was in 1 round. It looks like so. It was a pretty quick fight. He lost very quickly. But what does that do to a fighter if you have to pull off basically almost exactly a 2-month turnaround?
I mean, here's the thing. He has to know he's being set up. His coaches has to know he's being set up. 2-month turnaround real quick. June. Well, yeah, at the end of July or at the beginning of August now. Like, yeah, it's tough. And I'm sure they're paying him some good bread here, too. Now, there's 2 ways this could go. He could either be like, damn, I got caught. I'm not injured. I'm healthy. I'm in shape. Let's just continue training and let's see what happens. Or he's like, fuck, well, how much money am I going to get? Because money's relative and people don't understand that. So, for instance, would you fight Shara Bullet for $10,000? Would you personally?
No.
I would fight Shara. I'd fight Francis Ngannou for $10,000. You know what I mean? Just because I would need the money. I need the 10 grand to me that would help me out a lot. You don't.
Yeah, but you're also a lot tougher. Like you're way less.
Sure.
No fear.
I'm just trying to make the financial relativity. It's like what's some people are like, oh fuck, he's only getting paid 20 grand to do this. Well, to some of us, especially early on in our career, early on in the UFC, 20 grand can really take some weight off our shoulders. So there could be that incentive too.
Right. Fair enough. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. A last question on this. This is just a question from me to you as the fighter. When you get subbed in an armbar, I'm sure it can go a lot of different ways, right? We saw Bobby Green have an armbar, and basically, I think he had I don't know what happened. Paddy Pimblett really messed up his elbow. But in general, if you tap to an armbar, is that usually causing like strain that hey, you're going to need to take a week or 2 weeks off from the gym? Or usually if you tap quickly enough, it stops in a reasonable time, you're just fine? What normally
it's situation to situation. Really just depends on how far it goes, how quick he tapped, the angle, the pressure. I mean, there's just too much to tell. I mean, he might have just got caught in an armbar, realized he was stuck and tapped and walked away and started training the next day. And that happens more than it doesn't. Now, when you're in the UFC, guys will tend to let their arms break. But I know his arm isn't broken. I know he doesn't have any ligament damage, because if he did, the doctors wouldn't let him fight. He wouldn't pass a medical exam. And if they're like, oh, 2 months ago, you hyperextended your elbow, they're going to sit you out for probably 6 months. So we don't have to worry about him being injured. With that being said, overseas, the commission doesn't oversee anything. So, that's why against a Shara can fight. But I'm sure he wouldn't take a risk if his arm had any kind of injury, serious injury. I don't think he'd risk it going against a killer like Shara Bullet.
All right. Before we go on to the next topic, Celine asked, "You're not with Roman tonight?"
No,
Your
my
buddy.
dad passed away a couple weeks ago, and I had to come to Michigan for his memorial service.
All right. All right, moving on to topic number 3. We have Tony Ferguson, basically the biggest fan favorite at this point that you could ever imagine. I think 99.9% of UFC fans are rooting for Tony Ferguson. It's got to be a tough spot for Michael Chiesa. There's just been a lot of stuff I've been watching, man. There's what's better than listening to Tony Ferguson on media day. I don't think there are many things that are better or more interesting in terms of the other media day interviews. And he's coming out, he's looking confident, he's sounding confident. I know he's done that. He sounded pretty confident the last 7 times where he's taking those last 7 losses. So it's hard to read too much into it. But one thing that he did say, which he hasn't done in like 7 years, which is spar. And he said he sparred like 170 rounds. Something, I don't know if I'm getting the number right. 120 rounds. Yeah. Okay. So you saw it. All right. Where are we at? I want to hear from the expert because I'm feeling like Tony's going to pull it off somehow. I don't know, but I need to turn it over to you.
Man, I tell you what, dude, this is a bad situation for Michael Chiesa, and what a bad situation to be in, because if he wins, he beats Tony Ferguson on a 7-fight losing streak, not the Tony of old, but the Tony of new. And if he loses, he's really going to get discredited for everything he's accomplished in the UFC, because Paddy Pimblett beat Tony. Everybody's beat Tony. He's lost 7 fights in a row. And it just really it sucks, man. I like both guys. I've trained with Michael Chiesa before. He's a really nice guy. Man, I hate this position that he's in, because I'm rooting for Tony Ferguson, man. The guy is a dog. He shows up. He's a gangster. He's on like a 12, 13 fight win streak at one point in the UFC, scheduled to fight for the belt several times. Every time something happened. And then unfortunately, after getting knocked out, you just don't come back the same. And dude, he got brutally knocked out by Michael Chandler, if I'm not mistaken. And man, I just haven't. He just hasn't seen the same ever since. It's one thing to lose a fight, but when you get that snowball effect of loss, it's just become easier and easier to lose. And unfortunately, I think Tony, like myself, have fallen into that category. I want Tony to win. I always want my heroes to win. Tony is, just his attitude. He's from he's a Michigan guy too.
Right.
So how what's that?
Kalamazoo.
Yeah, Kalamazoo, man. So how can we not root for a guy like Tony Ferguson? I love Michael Chiesa as well, but I'm Tony all day, baby.
What does it tell you? Okay, I know some people, a lot of people are like, oh, he needs to retire or whatever, right? But what does it tell you about his mentality and about his strength of character that he wants to keep coming out? And by the way, he's not taking like easy fights. He continues to take really hard fights on a 7-fight losing streak. Yeah, is this something that you think people are overlooking and people should say, hey, we admire you for the fact that you're not giving up?
Dude, I admire him for not giving up, man. Like, people don't understand how hard this sport is. And I get the Tony Ferguson treatment off of like, you need to retire. You need to retire. And you know what? You need to shut your mouth, because it's not your body. You don't pay my bills. You don't know what I've been through. You don't understand the hardships of fighting. You can't just, it's just not something that is just over in one day. It's not just like, oh, I lost fucking 7 fights in a row. Well, I guess I'm done. It's like, I guess some people are okay with that. But guys like me, guys like Tony Ferguson, we crave that rush. We crave that hand-to-hand, that one-on-one. There's no bullshit aside. When you're talking about Tony Ferguson, man, he was a fight away from being the champ. And now people are like, oh, you've lost 7 in a row, dude. It's like that's such a small blip on a radar. And people, I know to a fan, even an experienced fan, like, well, 7 losses in a row isn't a small blip, but in our mind it is, because we don't, like, you look at Brett Favre, and to me he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and I loved him as a person, especially when he was sending his dick pics to the cheerleaders and shit, which was epic, by the way. Like, that's legendary shit. Like, he don't give a fuck like that. And you know what? And just goes to his motto. You look at Brett Favre, he's sending these cheerleaders dick pics, and he's throwing interceptions on Sunday, and then he always said, he goes, well, how did you recover from your last interception? Fuck, I just chucked up another one. You know what I mean? Like, it's guys that can forget about the losses, and they're on to the next play. They're on to the next down. I go to Brett Favre a lot because, dude, the guy's a fucking animal, man. Like, he throw an interception, and, a lot of guys try to get their confidence back in football. Like, they throw an interception, all right, well, they want to throw some short passes, get their confidence back. Brett Favre, man, one of my heroes in sports, is like, fuck that. I'm throwing an 80-yarder the next play. And that's how Tony Ferguson, he doesn't care about the losses. Just like me. I don't care about the losses. I could lose, I could end up, my career might totally flip upside down. I was 16-4 in the UFC. Now I'm 17-11. Fuck, I might end my career 17-20. I don't care. All I care about is the next challenge, the next goal. And I'm sure that's where Tony's at too.
Yeah, and I think this again shines a spotlight on I think what's a problem in the sport is that people look at losses like 1 or 2 losses like, oh, he's all done. And we don't look at that in like we don't look at losses like that in any other sport. Like, all right, you take a couple losses, but they still look great. It was a close game or whatever it may be. And I think in mixed martial arts, we have, and maybe in boxing too, that once you have 1 or 2 losses, you're on a downslide. Like it's crazy. And we've seen that disproved many times. I understand that there's a psychological element that can compound and maybe have exponential impact. But in this case, look, and also I think people are calling for Tony to maybe think about other things because he is also 40. I know that's another issue, but whatever it is, he wants to come back. He wants to fight. He's feeling confident, and they're giving him a shot, so it's amazing. By the way, Tehran just said, and I'm going to put this up here just as a little correction. He was born in Oxnard and raised in Muskegon, Michigan. The reason why I said Kalamazoo is because that's where he went to college. So he wrestled at Kalamazoo College. That's my recollection, anyways. I've heard Tony Ferguson talk about that in interviews. But anyways, we're both team Tony. I'm predicting Tony wins. It has to be that way. I'm hoping that's what happens. And I think MMA fans around the world are going, that celebration, if he wins, when he wins, is going to be out of control. It's going to be super, super special.
The one thing I will say is if he does win, he's going to fight again. And it's just like, all right, now what are your goals? Because he still thinks he has it at the champ, man. And I fucking I want Tony to win. How cool would it be if he went on like a 3 or 4 fight win streak and then retired? You know what I mean? Like, I know people are going to use him as a stepping stone like they did with Patty and stuff. Let's say he goes out and beats Michael Chiesa. He already said that it's not going to be his last one. Dana White gets another. Oh, now he wins another one. Oh, fuck. Now he's won 2 fights in a row. And then maybe wins another one, even 3. How cool. Like, I'm rooting for the guy, man. I'm rooting for the guy because he's going to bat for all the guys like me that have been losing a lot lately, and we just keep persevering and getting through it. And when you see someone that you look up to, I look up to Tony Ferguson, man. I was in the league with him for a little while, and I want to see him turn around because it's so hard to turn losing around, man. And again, I'm not speaking as a fan. I'm speaking as someone that's going through it. Like, fuck, man. At one time I was ranked in the top 100 fighters in the world at 155, and I've lost 6 out of my last 7. And I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep persevering. And to see someone like Tony at his level keep doing what he's doing is just pretty incredible.
And I think it's dope that he's moving up in weight class, right? Like that's a natural trajectory for guys as they get older. It's hard to cut the weight. So that's good for him. Hopefully that will improve his endurance, improve his chin, all those other things. So I think this is really cool. And I think, like I said, when do you have a fight where literally, how often is it that you have a fight where like 99.9% of the MMA community is behind one guy? Now, it will be unfortunate if it doesn't go the right way, but I think it's going to go the right way. So let's see what happens. We got a quick little comment from Trent. If Tony goes in there and gets an impressive win, I think they should give him a quick turnaround. A UFC 307. I mean, maybe in October.
It's definitely possible as long as he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't get hurt, and I would want to know against who. And again, we have another point. Let me pull it back up here. Tony, look. No, wait, where was this? Somebody said, yeah. Anakin said, Anakin's been really, really active in our chat the last few weeks. Thank you, Anakin. We really appreciate it. The guy Tony's losing to are not bad losses. He's fighting all the best guys. Like, it's 100% true. So I just think if they give him the right matchup at welterweight after this fight, I just don't want to, and I don't think anybody wants to see him lose anymore. That's it. He doesn't need super hard matchups. Let's give him matchups that make sense, especially since he's moving up in weight. And we want to see, the bottom line is people want to see him win. And Tony, if you hear this, that's, I think, what we all want. And let's do it. We're rooting for you, man. All right, here we go. Topic number 4, another amazing fight. Like, did you, before this week, were you even, because I wasn't even aware of all the great fights on this card. Like, this is crazy. Chito Vera against Figueiredo.
I think it's a great step up for Figueiredo going up in the weight class. With that being said, he has a hard time making 125. So going to 135 is great. With that being said, man, he's athletic, he's strong, he's powerful, he's fast. Chito's going to have his hands full. I'm not going to say that it's a lopsided, he's going to lose or it's going to be lopsided. But, I think a lot of guys, when they see a 25 or going up to 35, they think the size discrepancy is going to be great. But, Chito against Sean O'Malley, I think that was his last fight. To me, he didn't look incredible. He looked okay, but he didn't look incredible. And Figueiredo going up again, he's going to have that extra size. I think he's going to have the distinct speed advantage. And without having to cut down to 125 so hard, I think he did fight his last fight at 135. But I mean, he's not going to have gas tank issues. And, I'm trying to think of who talked about his gas tank issues. I think, was it Moreno that talked about it? He could put a pace on him. And yeah, Moreno beat him a couple times, or at least once, and talked about, taking him into deep water. I don't think he's going to have those gas tank issues going up to 135.
Yeah, well, so speaking of gas tank, he won a decision, right? So he went the distance against Rob Font. That was his first fight at bantamweight, and then he beat Cody Garbrandt with a submission rear naked choke. Yeah, and he's always had issues with the weight at 125, so I think that's going to be interesting. Most people I've listened to are picking Figueiredo in this fight, and I think they're also prefacing it on the fact, like, hey, if Chito fights like how he fought Sean O'Malley, he's going to have a really hard time with Figueiredo. So that seems to be the consensus. I think this is a really, really, really interesting fight. Once again, this card, like I said, if you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, it is stacked. I'm just going to tell you real quick before we go to our our fifth topic. I want to know what time this fight card is. I'm assuming it's in Abu Dhabi time, so it's during the day. Here, I'm going to just double check, but I have to watch this. Yeah, it's during Abu Dhabi time, which is actually dope because the main event starts at noon. The only problem with that is that's my Saturday boxing class, which I never miss.
Skip it, plug it.
That sucks. I never missed that boxing class. Anyways, well, whatever. We're gonna figure it out. At least I'll make the main event one way or another, or in the last couple fights. But let's go this weekend. Okay. Now we're on to the last topic, which is a little bit on the gossipy side, I have to admit. It is a news story, and it's about Conor McGregor, okay? And I just felt like we had to cover it. So Conor McGregor had to go to court earlier this week for a driving offense that happened almost 2 years ago or something like that. And just to give you a quick summary, what happened was he was I guess, driving really, really fast. I listened to an entire podcast yesterday, an Irish podcast, talking about all of Conor McGregor's incidents and all these things that have been going on. And apparently what happened is some guys were waving at him, and then he was kind of showing off, and he drove really fast, and he went past them. Then there was a cop car that was following at 160 kilometers per hour to catch up to him and kept waving him over. Finally, he pulled over, and then the officer had to ask him multiple times to get out of the car. The reason why he didn't, in Conor's defense, he said, well, I'm not going to get out of the car until my security arrives. They're behind me. So security was following behind. They're coming up, and then he got out of the car, whatever. So he now does not have a license for 2 years. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because there's a couple of reasons, actually. Right after this happened, here, I'm going to try and find this footage. I actually forgot to pull it up before. But right after this happened, Conor McGregor, as he normally does when negative stories come out about him, he posted sparring footage. So it's pad work footage, actually. Here, so let me find the pad work from this most recent one. And Sean O'Malley immediately, oh, come on, where is it? I really want to get your opinion on this, but now I can't seem to find it. Hold on, give me 2 more seconds to find it.
No worries.
So Sean O'Malley basically immediately, and Chael just posted in this video. This exactly is Conor McGregor losing his mind. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about. Okay, I can't find the pad work video. They may have taken it down, to be honest, because it did not look good to me. And I wanted to get your thoughts, because I feel as though I can understand striking pretty well, because I train almost every day in terms of striking, whether it's hitting today I just trained myself, shadow boxing, and hitting the bag, and then try to, as much as I can, go to Muay Thai class and do the boxing and all that stuff. I don't think it looked great. I don't even know why he released it, but I assume it was just something to take the attention off what just happened. Now, this on top of the fact that Conor is trying to come back in December. So the pad work to me made me think that maybe he's not really training that hard, at least not yet. Maybe he's not in fight camp, maybe because the deal hasn't been signed. But if I was Conor McGregor, well, this is hard to say, but I would imagine if I was him, I know he's got probably a million things on his mind, so many things on his plate, and he's so famous, and it's got to be very difficult, I'm sure. But I imagine this fight would be at the top of my mind, and all I would be doing is training, eating right, being 100,000,000% dedicated to it, because this fight is going to be so huge if and when it does happen, and it just doesn't appear to be that way. Okay, now I'm using this as a preface. I just want to take a look back at all of the things that Conor has been through in the last 8 years. Okay. So some of you guys may have forgotten about some of these things. So we're going to look back at, okay, so let's talk about this. Apparently, according to this podcast, so they say that he has 6 driving offenses. Apparently he has 20. Okay, that's what they said on the podcast. And he's been arrested and charged with 6 driving offenses, 2 counts of dangerous driving, being uninsured, having no license. Okay, all this stuff. Then he, let's see, further charges for dangerous driving prosecution. Now he's gotten this 2-year suspension. Another incident at Bellator 187. I don't know if you remember this. He rushed in and like ran at the referee for calling a decision, or calling off a fight or whatever it is. I think Louisa found the video. Hold on one second. Let me see if this is it. Yeah, this is it. Oh my God. Okay, let me see if I can find the actual video. So I'm going to show you this this story that Louisa just found me. Hold on one second. So again, Sean O'Malley criticizes Conor McGregor's slow and sloppy pad work. I mean, dude, it did not look good. It did not look good. I'm telling you, it was so weird that he posted this. I don't know if here. Justin, tell me what you think of this.
1 minute.
I know he's trying to throw power shots, so he's loading up and he's throwing like heavy shots. But like, why would this be what you're posting? I don't understand.
I mean, it could be because he is exactly what we perceive him as, slow and out of shape, or he's trying to get us to think like, oh, fuck, he's taking this lightly, and, maybe sending smoke screens over there, making think that he's slow and fast. But with that being said, I don't know, man. We thought that about Chuck Liddell too. Remember when Chuck Liddell fought Tito a couple of years ago, or 10 years ago, and Chuck Liddell came out on the pads and he was slow and sloppy. And everyone's like, oh my God, he looks like shit. And everybody else was like, oh, no, he's just setting him up. He's setting him up. Then he came out and gets knocked out in like 30 seconds. I mean, the proof is usually in the pudding. People typically don't like people to talk shit about their work, so they're not going to post videos where they think they look okay, or where they don't look okay. So I don't know, man. Dude, the guy's a party animal, dude. He can't. He's a multi tens of millionaire. He doesn't have to worry about money. Like, dude, when you get to that kind of stardom and fame, like, again, we've talked about this in a lot of shows. What's his motivation?
Okay, but I want to actually talk about that. That's something else I want to talk about. Like, so you said he doesn't have to worry about money. So many people say that. Conor's set for life. Anthony Smith says that. So many people say that. I want to clarify something, because there is no such thing as set for life. It just doesn't exist, because it doesn't matter if you have $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, because if you have certain issues, personality-wise, emotional-wise, where, again, I don't know his bank account, I don't know his personal finances, but I can see how he carries himself, and I can see the types of things he likes to buy. I know that he has a yacht, which is a massive money hole. I'm sure he's bought all sorts of cars that require massive amounts of maintenance that are constantly draining from his bank account. My point is, what can happen sometimes if you have that mindset, and if you have a problem with spending money like this on all these crazy things, the more money you have, the worse it can actually be for you, because then you can start buying all these assets that are depreciating assets, but that are flashy and that are fun. And all of a sudden you might end up, instead of maybe being like 50,000 in debt, if you would have had $1 million net worth or something, I'm just making this up. Now you're talking about a $5 million debt, or a $20 million debt, or something like that. You can, we've seen it time and again with Mike Tyson, with Floyd Mayweather, with all these guys that come into tons of money and actually end up in a horrible situation. Think about all the people that win the lottery and just end up in a horrible, horrible situation, way worse than if they would have not won the lottery. I just want to put that out there. Okay. So now I want to go back to his Wikipedia page and to these offenses. And I just think that, man, there's something really, really love Conor. I want to see him come back, and I'm super excited about him. But this is bad when you really add this up. Now, look, right after that, it's 2017, 2018. He has the infamous bus incident. Look, they just cut, right, Muhammad Mokaev, which we talked about, for supposedly starting a fight, sucker punching somebody, which is inexcusable. He shouldn't have done that. Manel Kape was sucker punched when he was with your coach, Eric Nixick. That's unacceptable. I get that. Remember what Conor did? He brought like 30 people to wage assault on a bus, smash windows. Michael Chiesa got glass in his eye. That was insane. And they let it slide. That fight was a huge money maker. Conor's obviously got special rules for him, but that was horrendous. That was straight criminal what he did to Khabib and everybody on the bus. Okay. Then let's see. This is just the actual fight. He talked a lot of smack, whatever. Okay. What about this? He's also had these sexual assault allegations in 2019 from this person. And then in January 2021, he had another one. Now, if you remember, I don't remember if it was one of these people, but there was somebody that was going to testify against him, and they were car bombed. Did you know that? Oh, I think you're muted. They were car bombed, and so they never were able to like link it back to Conor McGregor, but it did seem a bit odd. And a lot of people have speculated that he's got a lot of mob ties or organized crime ties in Dublin, Ireland. We also have another incident where he was arrested. I remember the footage for this where he smashed somebody's phone. The famous thing where he punched an older gentleman in a pub. There was the Corsica arrest where I think this is the woman whose car was car bombed. She was punched apparently and had jumped off his yacht, and then she filed charges against him, later dropped them. Then there was this one assaulting Francesco Franchetti. He punched this guy in his face when he was at it. He said he was getting along with him fine. Then in an instant, he turned on him and socked him in the face. And then again, remember, well, this is him getting targeted. And then now we have this driving incident. This thing was garbage. The alleged sexual assault, that was nonsense. And the punching the mascot was all staged. That was getting criminal charge for that. Okay. Bringing all of this up to say we have this footage looking not so great. We have all of these things piling up. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of really worried that like Conor is falling apart in front of our eyes. That's what I wanted to show and bring up. What are your thoughts? Like, do you think that this is just sometimes the chaos that fighters live in, and he's just magnified because he's so famous and done so well? Like, or does this tell you like, yo, we're in a bad spot in this fight? I don't think this fight's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't think the fight's gonna happen either. Again, with comes all the fame and power he has. Like, look at him, oh, Mike Perry, you're fired from a promotion that I have shares on. Like, he has the power to do that. You know, it's just I think his ego's gotten a little big for his britches, and unfortunately, nobody's untouchable, man. And especially when it comes to the government and the police. And he's gonna. I mean, having his license suspended for 2 years. I mean, I'm willing to bet that he still will drive without a license, and I'm sure he has enough chauffeurs that get him around as it is to begin with. So I really don't see that it's going to be that big of a deal. But again, when you take somebody that's had nothing and you make him into a superstar, world famous, he's arguably one of the most famous people, not the famous fighters, but famous people in the world. You can go anywhere that knows nothing knows about UFC, but they've heard of Conor McGregor. Arguably, you know, he's one of the most famous people in the whole world. With that kind of power, with that kind of fame, with that kind of money, he doesn't give a fuck. He has connections. I'm sure he has high connections all over the world. And, you know, unfortunately, when you're given all this power, like, I mean, who are we to say if we had $200 million in the bank and political ties all over the world that we wouldn't just let loose and go crazy? I mean, I'm not saying that you would or I would, but I'm not saying we wouldn't. I'm not saying we wouldn't. What if we just had no rules? What if we just could do whatever we want and we had unlimited money, almost unlimited money, and we know somebody that get us out of any trouble that we get in, almost any trouble. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where he's at, man. I mean, he's wearing a Superman cape right now. You know, I mean, people are like, well, you know, people say untouchable. I don't think he's untouchable, but a 2-year driving license suspension, I don't really think is that big of a deal. For someone that's driven around anyways.
I totally agree that in and of itself is not a big deal. I guess what I'm noticing is just a really scary looking trend of just sort of like almost as if he's falling apart, you know, ripping apart at the seams. And this is just one more showcase of that. Then we had the fight pull out for the broken toe. I mean, look, and that was legitimate. I actually kind of understood that because I could see how, especially for somebody like Conor, that could be really problematic. But we just have all these issues. The fight's getting delayed. He, you know, stuff of him partying all the time leading up to the fight. I don't know. And then now this. That's what I'm afraid of. And I really want to see him come back and have an amazing showing and pull off a victory. I guess the last thing I want to say on this is what I'm hoping for is that people close to him and around him are just like, all right, let's reel it in. Let's just spend the next, August until December. Let's spend the next 4 months in Dublin, or wherever he trains, only training, only around family, no party, no drink. I mean, look, man, who am I to say, right? I'm not a fighter, but I would imagine if I was in that situation, what I would do: no drinking, no drugs, no partying. You just focus 1,000,000%. And training makes you feel good. Have good people around you and just focus and let's see what he can do. And then if he goes in and he loses, right? You can always lose any fight. Fine. But that's what I'm hoping for him. And yeah, I want to see that fight hopefully on December 14th, as has been discussed.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a slippery slope. I mean, I couldn't imagine being handed that power. Basically, I'm not going to say it was overnight. Actually, it was over like 2 or 3 years, to say 3 years. But I couldn't imagine being handed that power. And to go to the fighter mindset, man, he's worked his ass off, regardless of how he is now. He really worked his ass off early in his career to get to where he's at. And when you think about, like, when I think about how hard I worked to get to the UFC, I couldn't imagine being like, all right, I'm going to dedicate the next year to my life to training as hard as I was when I was, 30 years old compared to 34 now, or 28 when I was compared to 34, because mentally I wouldn't want to go through it again. And he might be in a similar boat.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, there we go. That's the fighter perspective that we value, as always, from Justin. Guys, thank you guys so much for joining today. This was a blast. If you did enjoy the show and did like the video, make sure to click that like button. If you want to see more from the 10-7 MMA show, make sure to click subscribe. It's been amazing to see Tehran, Anakin, obviously Western Mass Climber's been there from the beginning, as well as Celine. But to see our new members come in and be so vocal in the chat, we love it. Last thing I'll highlight, Tehran's last little comment differences. He's talking about Conor and how he's still been able to do what he's doing versus Makaib, I believe, is that he makes UFC money. So, of course, they would let him get away with murder. Oh, God. All right. Well, yeah. It's a little extreme. But, yeah, we get what you're saying. And I think you're absolutely right. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Enjoy the UFC card tomorrow, and we'll have new content for you this weekend as well as next week. And we will see you in the next video. Take it easy.
See ya.